January 9th, 2024. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the 2000 tick chart using the NinjaTrader 8 platform. This is what the charts look like today. There was no economic data that I could find to really move the markets. It was pretty much just range bound within a pretty large, I would say about 30-point range. A lot different than what happened yesterday. Yesterday had this very, very strong rally from the lows to the highs, and it just kind of didn't stop. And so I'm going to go through the charts today. I only took a total of 2 trades. One trade I could justify. I think it was a reasonably good entry and a reasonably good reason to take the trade. And the second trade, with hindsight, I think it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction that I probably should have just skipped. Overall, there weren't too many trades that I could see today, so I'll get through them right now. This is the pre-market. The pre-market, you can see prices were kind of selling off, which isn't surprising considering the huge rally that we had yesterday. It's a little bit of a profit-taking and take-back. I did see one setup, but I wasn't around to take it. There's a lower high here, so prices look like they stayed within this yellow down channel. And what I liked about it was a new low here, first entry short, second entry short. Second entry short is a terrible signal bar to go short on, but as you can see, the trigger bar pushed very strongly through the EMA, and it looked like it was respecting this yellow down channel. Then when it came back up, it looked like it tried to break through the EMA, almost had a rejection, but this is close enough that this lower high would have been a worthwhile trade to take, I think, because you have enough room to the bottom. But unfortunately, it didn't set up at the time frame when I'm trading, so it's just good for myself to see these things and mark it up. So on the open, it looks like it was just range bound. So here, I'm wondering if we're going to have another trend day going down to recover a bit more than what we eventually ended up recovering, because it was a huge, strong rally. I thought we might have a one leg down, consolidation, and another leg down. But of course, you don't know that at the time, but this is what happened at the moment. So it looks like it's just consolidating. It's in a trading range. There's not really good, clean setups or setups that I particularly like. There is a second entry short here. It's a good signal bar, but there's not enough room to scalp out. And for sure, prices looks like they're just range bound. And you do have second entries here, but they're just moving up by one tick or moving down by one tick. So it makes me more cautious taking setups like those. It breaks out of the range and goes into this green channel. There's an overshoot, and it looks like it's starting to move up on this orange channel. It makes 2 measured moves up. So after the break of this green channel, at an overshoot, it tried to make one attempt down. It didn't make it. It breaks above the EMA and then tries to make a second attempt. So seeing this in real time, I abandoned the idea of going short, even though it broke below the pre-market lows, simply because it made 2 attempts up already. And so you think it might come back down, but I thought it was more likely just going to probably push back into the range. Let's make this look a little bit cleaner. So it starts moving, and it does do that. You do have a new high here, first entry long, second entry long. It's a terrible signal bar to go long. It is above the EMA, but it needed to close more bullish for me to even consider taking a trade. And you do have just enough room for a quick scalp, but I just didn't like the setup because it's the first time it's above the EMA. Breaks above the range, comes right back down, falls into this yellow channel. Then it breaks below the yellow channel and starts swinging back up again. And here I do see a new low. It's a first entry short, pullback, creates a second entry short. Now, second entry short, it's a good signal bar. Well, actually, the signal bar isn't that good because technically this is the signal bar for the second entry short. So this trigger bar is more convincing, but it ends up creating a failed second entry short. So here, I'm not thinking going long and I'm not thinking going short. But what happens was when this next candle creates the failure, it went one tick below and then it reversed the entire move back up, engulfed this previous candle. So I like that. However, after this confirms a failed second entry, it feels a little bit late to try to take this trade because it makes a matching high. So even though it didn't test and make a new high, it created a matching high, which depending on how you see it, it could be good enough to complete the push up and retest the highs. So it could now be, the uptrend could have played out. So I wasn't 100% sure. And even though it's not the high of the day, it's the localized high. So I felt like there wasn't enough room. If it had ticked one above and closed this strong, then I think there might have been more momentum and I might have jumped on the trade on the next candle that shows up. So this next candle, it looks like it reverses. So I'm just watching carefully. And it pushes down and then it pushes really strongly back up. So I liked what I saw here. I'm thinking, okay, there's a triple test here. It looked like it didn't bounce off the EMA, but it looked like it's potentially a failed breakout pullback. So depending on how you drew your range, I had it here. I wanted it to come down and touch, or at least touch the EMA. It doesn't. So it looks like I jumped early. So what actually happened was when this candle was forming, it opened down here and it was kind of oscillating and actually broke above this micro triple top. When it broke above and it stayed there for a while, I thought there was enough momentum to push up for 1 point. So I actually put my order at the highs of this previous bar, of this higher low. I wasn't 100% sure I'd get filled. It came back, picked me up, and then it closed at the very high. So I was lucky to get it in this trade because I think if it pushed up even higher, if it pushed above this purple triangle, then I would have considered the trade have already been made and I would have abandoned it. So when I entered, after it pushed above this triple test, I entered, it didn't make my 1 point scalp yet. So it came back, picked me up, and then continued forward. So this is kind of a time critical trade. If it, ended up here and my trade was still down here unfilled, I would have definitely canceled it because I thought my scalp was already have been made. It turns out it would have been safe, just to hang in there longer. But after a certain point, this candle would not have come back and picked me up. I would have just missed on the trade. Prices then continue moving up. It kind of starts moving down on this green channel. And this is where I take my second trade, but this isn't a very good reason to take this trade. So I thought I saw this green channel coming down. It looks like I made one attempt up, first entry long, second entry long, failure. Then it came back and it looks like if you restarted the count, it'd be first entry long, second entry long, and then a higher low. But that is a little bit jarbled because this really isn't a new high. I mean, technically it's a matching high and you could reset the count, but it wasn't that good. And when I saw this, I had a knee-jerk reaction thinking, oh, it's obviously breaking up and over the EMA again. So I entered at the high of here, which isn't the best entry, and it wasn't even a good setup to take this entry. So it definitely should have been skipped because there was an overshoot at the bottom and it came out through the top. So seeing something like this, you would think maybe, depending on how it reacted to the EMA, it could have come right back down. And EMA isn't giving you much indication right now. It's just flattening. So definitely it should have been a trade to have skipped. So continue watching, waiting. So this is, I think, in all fairness, if I was on top of my game and just trading appropriately and not doing stupid things, it would have just been one trade and I would have been profitable on one. But this one, I lucked out, so I'm profitable on two. But definitely something I've made note to myself to avoid stuff like this, which I'm still trying to hammer out of my bad habits. The prices then continue moving down. It kind of consolidates in this blue range. And here it gets very choppy. And when this flashed up, I went back and tried to see if there was any justification for me to try to take a trade. So technically you have a new low here. It's a first entry short. It has all these matching bottoms, breaks a little bit lower, then it has a second entry short. So you could, depending on how you saw it, seeing this as a failed second entry short. The thing that made me not mark it or even consider taking the trade as I was watching this in real time is it looks like it's definitely hitting some kind of resistance up here, top of the range. I don't want to be buying into the top. It already touched it. Yes, it did engulf this guy, but the EMA, you could say it's bouncing off the EMA, but the EMA is too flat right now. So you can't trust it to be a reliable another indicator. I didn't have this trend line drawn yet, so there was no real key entry point. To take this would have been, I think, a kind of a big guess. And once this candle formed, the trade is definitely too late. So there is technically a failed second entry short here, but it didn't set up right enough to make it, it's like an almost trade. So then prices continue moving up, it kind of oscillates, it breaks out, it is respecting the EMA. This is the first break, so I'm expecting it to test this high, and it completes it right here. It keeps pushing up even more, and now it kind of consolidates again. And so here, I actually had the range a little bit tighter, and then I ended up dragging it here. I saw this as a new high. It's a first entry long, pullback, second entry long. This is also an almost setup. The thing I didn't like about it was this is an inside bar. So this is your signal bar for second entry long. If it closed fully bullish, like a hammer, or way up here, closed at the high, I might have considered it. But since it looked like it opened down here It did a bunch of things. It went to the high, and then the sellers pushed it back down. So that gives me pause. Of course, then next candle, it works. But then again, I'm feeling after this candle closes, I'm feeling there's too much, there's not enough room here. It is getting squished by the EMA and the top of the range. And I don't have this green channel drawn at the moment or at that time. So it just didn't feel like it felt too risky. Then prices continue chopping. It looks like the EMA is holding for sure now. I did draw this, so I'm thinking, okay, it's also creating new highs or testing the highs. I'm thinking if there's a clean setup, I would probably take it. If I was fast enough, this might have been a trade worth considering, except it's already meeting the potential highs and it already created a double top. So seeing this, you would think, okay, it looks pretty good, except even in the beginning of the day, this was the pre-market high. So if the pre-market high was much, much higher, like way up there, then you might have considered taking this because this could be the start of a strong trend. So pulls back, again, it pops, and then it breaks and overshoots. So I'm just watching, makes one leg down, pushes up. It's having trouble with the EMA on the other side now, and it starts selling off. So here, I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's a correction happening if I could find a short. I don't see any clean second entry shorts that I like. The prices then continue chopping. I do see this. It's a double bottom, so I start the count here as a first entry short, creates a second entry short. It also creates a new high, first entry long, second entry long. So technically right now I have a second entry short and a second entry long. Now, one of them is likely going to fail. Which one's going to fail? Because this could have ended up being a failed second entry long if it continued down, and then it would have been a second entry short. Or in this case, it became a second entry long and failed second entry short. So I marked this, but I don't think there was nothing here. You do want to test the highs, but it feels very tight. So you're fighting against the problem of this down channel needs to find a new low, and this tiny correction needs to find a new high. Did it complete it here? Maybe it was good enough. You don't know. So when this candle forms, you do have a second entry long, failed second entry short confirmation. I felt, okay, the trade was too late. I also would have liked it to have broken above the EMA, perhaps this whole setup, or the EMA, if it had sliced down here, kind of where my cursor is, then I would have felt more confident taking this trade. So although this is like two entries, it just felt a little tricky. And prices continue moving up. You do have a new high, first entry long. Technically, you have a second entry long. It's a bad signal bar. It doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't give me confidence to take a long for sure. Prices move down, and this is where I actually see a decent setup. It comes down, breaks through. It creates a first entry short, pulls up, and I'm thinking there's a potential for second entry short. It creates a second entry short, and it's a break of this green down channel. It made one attempt down, pulls up. This could be the second attempt down. So when it pulls down, I was thinking I got spooked because this is probably maybe a worthwhile trade to take, but it is a little bit riskier for the setup because the body's so tiny. If I entered, it would have been here. My stop loss would have been up here. I did like that it broke out. I'm thinking one push down, it could make a second push down, but after seeing this candle, I was hesitant, so I didn't chase it for sure. Then of course this candle flashes down, and this would have definitely worked out. And it chops around. If you're going for more than just a couple points, you probably run the risk of getting stopped out. The prices can continue moving. It falls into this consolidation area. There's second entries, but they're nothing super clean. Chops around, and it just gets congested. It does have an overshoot here and an overshoot here. It made two clean legs up. Here, you technically have a new low, first entry short, second entry short. So you do have a second entry short here that I didn't label. The thing I didn't like about this, I mean, there's an overshoot here and an overshoot here. I can't really understand what the bias is. It just looks range bound. So in a range, it's most likely going to push back through. There's plenty of room to the EMA. So I wasn't sure, so I left it alone. It looked like it would have worked pretty well. It flashed through and it continued chopping. Now it's too spiky. Breaks out the bottom, falls into this channel, pushes one leg up. And definitely here it's too late in the day because this is the last 10 minutes. Although there are a lot of candles printed, it usually happens in the last 10 minutes as people are closing out their positions. So I definitely didn't want to trade anything in here. I was seeing if there's any good setups. Technically, you have a new high, first entry long, right here actually, second entry long, or in a visual, it's one leg down, first entry long, second leg down, second entry long, but this isn't a good signal bar. Same thing here, you could have a new low, first entry short, technically have a second entry short, but this is your signal bar for the second entry short. And if you waited for the trigger bar to close, it's not very confident either because it closed too high up to be a bearish. I mean, it is red, but it didn't close too high up. It needed to close down here to give you confidence there's enough momentum to push it back down. That's how I saw the charts today. Kind of interesting. There weren't too many setups that I found that I really liked. Volume was a little bit lower. And out of the two trades, I think only one was really worth mentioning. The second one was kind of almost a stupid, no reason trade. There was a reason, but it wasn't a very good one. So hopefully that was helpful.